welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show, we welcome back the incredible Rico stories. And as ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story. Entitled Rejoice Not, a Serpent Comes. Let's get straight into that. Prologue. We can forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Plato. Part 1. The Ancient One. The caves of Turkmen, China, went on for miles underground, but that was only the part open to the public. The ancient ruins and carved caverns went much deeper into the bowels of the earth. This was a place only recently explored by man, never intended for men. But the joint research team between the boss and the Chickums finally found the giant sarcophagus encased in ice. As they breached the chamber, the hissing and screeching was deafening as the Chickum troops were attacked by dozens of reptilians standing guard. Many men and lizards died, but the Chickums kept coming until most of the reptilians were dead, except for the females and the young ones that were captured. Back at the lab, the boss was present to see the prize. It was just another of his many evil conquests, but this one had the most potential to assuage his lust for global control. The Ancient One was laid out in a sub-zero containment bunker. He was 20 feet tall and weighed in at over 2 tons, and his long spiked tail flowed behind him. Finally, man had proven that dragons once existed. The DNA experiments began, but after many months, many of the subjects from the first few tests became so disfigured that their organs shut down and they died horrible deaths. The ones that didn't were completely insane and couldn't be controlled and would be euthanized. But the very young and those in their mothers' wombs showed promise. But the alpha's male offspring was different. Well, he was younger, stronger than the rest, and much more intelligent. It had an ancient humanity about it, and after the DNA injections, it became primal, sinister, and evil as it grew at twice the rate of the other subjects. But some things can neither be controlled nor managed, and Long Shen, or the Dragon God, was no exception. He communicated with his hands and could put thoughts in your head. It was this ability that led to his escape. He continued to communicate with naive lab technicians, convincing them to open not only the containment chamber, but the huge steel doors to the compound. And the long-dead ancient terror was now free, and his almost mindless subjects followed him after feasting upon every human they could get to. Part 2. Some Things Weren't Meant to Be. It was a moonless night over the Korean peninsula at 30,000 feet. Eric and Abashe were aboard the US military C-17 with a 5-man team of South Korean Spec Ops. This mission was top secret, special access only. They were to do a HAHO, a high altitude, high opening, jump and ride their special chutes into the communist Chinese territory. The buzzer sounded and a red light came on. 1 minute, announced the crew chief. Good luck and Godspeed, said Ray Drake. The ramp comes down, and then they stepped off into the black abyss. The landing was uneventful as the team hid their chutes and set up a perimeter before proceeding. They would travel all night using darkness for cover and conceal themselves during the day. They couldn't afford being discovered by the anti-American elements within the Chickum government. On the second night, they reached the outskirts of a village in the foothills of the Tumen Mountains. What they were about to see was far worse than any battlefield carnage. The village was destroyed, and the people were strewn about with gaping holes in their chests and sides. Hearts, kidneys, livers, and even eyes were ripped from the people of all sizes. Children lay mutilated, locked into the grasp of their mother's arms. A couple of the hardened Spec Ops retched as even Abashai whimpered and turned his head away. This was the first time Eric had witnessed such horror. They pushed ahead in hopes of penetrating the caverns before sunup, and they silently entered the tunnels, taking out 2 sentries. Huang and Yun took flanking positions, each creeping down one side of the tunnel. Abishai alerted, but it was too late. The 2 were overrun by multiple evil spawns that looked like a cross between a reptilian and a Nile crocodile. They fought to the last second, but they were grabbed and torn apart. These monstrosities kept coming as the team threw grenades and flares. They looked like some biological mistake out of a low-budget sci-fi movie. They had stubby wings that they would flap rapidly, in unison, making a disoriented noise. Although it gave off their position, it made it hard to concentrate when combined with their ear-splitting hisses. Their skin was so tough and scaly that Abashai's teeth did little more than annoy them, until he discovered that he could bite and tear these wings at the root, causing great pain. Eric fired his Barrett 50 until empty, and with only moderate effect to these armored lizards. The remaining South Korean troops fired their 458 SOCOMs with very minimal effect. Eric deployed the ultrasonic weapon and called retreat. Lieutenant Moon and Sergeant Park narrowly escaped with their severely injured teammate, Private Soon, after tossing all of their grenades and flares. They were totally defensive and extremely outnumbered. When they finally made it to the daylight pouring into the tunnel entrance, the reptilians turned back. They escaped into the heavy brush and did what they could to treat Soon's injuries. But he needed a medevac soon. Eric began calling for help. "Valhalla, this is Viking. We are totally compromised." Eric turned to his teammates and said, "In Indian lore, the serpent god, Nagarajan, was worshipped, and his serpents could spit venom. I see nothing here worthy of worship." Part 3. Know Your Enemy. Harry and Chuck were now mostly instructors and usually conducted training missions, but at the moment Harry and Akimi were finally traveling to Okinawa with their parents to introduce their children to the extended family. They also had plans for a short trip to Osaka to visit Alexander, Sumiyoshi, and the karate school. And after a couple of days and a big feast with relatives, Harry and Akimi were off to Osaka and the karate school. They met with Mr. Sumiyoshi and discovered that his eldest nephew had made a bargain with the Yamaguchi family to undermine and take control of Sumiyoshi Enterprises. He had bargained with the Chinese triad to send them a Chinese sage to enchant the Kappa. PSIA had this man in custody, and he kept repeating, "Rejoice, not a serpent comes." Rumors were coming from China about actual dragons being spotted in the mountains. Alexander also told Hawk that a one Raymond Drake had commissioned the making of 2 huge Ayorio swords. While having dinner at the Sumiyoshi house with Alex and Jonah, the housekeeper interrupted dinner to say that there was a very important video call for them. The Koboku powered up the large TV on the wall, and it was a light feed, and was none other than Raymond Drake, flanked by Hawk's old teammate, Tim Ross. Akimi started cursing under her breath in Japanese, and Ray addressed them by saying, "Mr. and Mrs. Tate, congratulations on your new family, and please forgive the interruption." Tim nodded with a sheepish smile and waved. Ray went on to say that Eric had led a South Korean Spec Ops team into the mountains of China in an attempt to destroy a science project gone haywire created by a billionaire, Goyojo Sovros, aka the Boss. The team was now missing and without support for 2 days, and Eric had managed to send one message saying the mission was totally compromised. Master Sergeant Tammy Martin was currently on a military hop and with a new asset set to arrive in Seoul, SK, in about 10 hours. She is also accompanied by 2 new team members from Eric's family. "Hawk, you and Tim are our only hope to form a team and rescue our people. We need you to bring the blue swords and meet Tim and our package in Seoul tomorrow night." Akimi was furious, and before she could speak, Ray clasped his hands in front of his chest and said, And dear Akimi, will you please be a part of this mission? We desperately need your cyber skills. Harry immediately wanted to know why JTC had deployed a team on foreign soil. Ray responded, yes, JTC policy was never to send teams overseas. But what Savros and the Chickums have done is to create an evil of ancient biblical proportions. They have mixed actual dragon DNA with reptilians. Mr. Sumayoshi, I know you to be a man of honor, so I will speak freely in front of you. The Chickum secretly requested our help via the South Korean government, but the Chinese hierarchy is divided over whether to accept our assistance. Certain influential businessmen now understand the dire implications and have pressured high-ranking elected officials for help after villages were razed and the inhabitants slaughtered by these monsters. Savros owns a Chinese biotech facility, and he personally underwrote the research and bribed officials for an expedition into the forbidden caverns of Tumen. This is not too far from the Russian border, and they have granted us permission to ingress and egress from there. If what has been created here spreads, Asia and the entire world will be in peril. Drake was not his usual flippant self, and from the downward look on his face, he was dead serious. Part 4. Dragon Slayers. The following day at 1700 hours, Hawk and Akimi landed at Camp Eagle Airfield in Seoul. They were introduced to Alpha 3 Jacob, Tank Anderson, 6'7", 375 with Dog Thor, and Alpha 4 Alex Still, 6'10", 360 with Dog Cujo. They were yet untested but will receive their OJT from Hawk and Tim. The dogs are outfitted with load-bearing vests to carry extra ordnance and supplies. But remember, the alphas and their dogs have the same abilities as the others. They just lack the experience. They have already learned Chinese and will be carrying sophisticated listening equipment. Amazingly, Ray Drake explained that he himself would run the op from a C-17 command aircraft that would ha-ho the team. They will be carrying more ultrasonic weapons, street sweepers with incendiary exploder rounds, along with more grenades and as much armor-piercing, phosphorus-tipped ammo as possible, and some custom-designed claymores with exploding phosphorus fragments. The new stealth drone is equipped to jam radar and communications while remaining on station for up to 16 hours. And Tammy tearfully approached Harry. "Please, Hawk, help Eric." Don't sweat it, Sarge. We got this," said Harry. "You just work your magic from here with that fancy new drone." "Oh, well, it's got both high-explosive thermite rockets and air-to-air missiles. You just send me some coordinates, and it will be like the 4th of July. Drake speaks up. "Akimi will feed code to the drone via satellite link to blind the Chicoms. Sergeant Martin will fly the drone for overwatch. A squadron of F-22s will be on standby in case this mission turns completely to shit. A B-2 bomber will loiter over the sea with 2 cruise missiles designated as Thunder and Lightning. They are a 1-2 punch, with the first being a 2,000-pound seismic charge and the second a 2,000-pound thermite burning at over 5,000 degrees. The entire mountain will implode. You must be at least a mile away from the blast. And finally, a Delta QRF will be loaded on 4 Sikorsky Raiders. Gentlemen, your call sign is Dagger. We are Broadsword. The drone is Dagon. Eric is Viking. Folks, please allow me to introduce our operative, Chinese-American double agent Lin Song." The son walks up to Tim and lays a big kiss on him and says, "Where have you been?" And Harry stares and says, "Well, when were you going to tell me about her?" And Tim responds, "While you've been sitting in that cushy office at HQ, I've been busy saving Europe and Asia. Miss Song has obtained valuable intel." She explains, "It looks like the World Health Institute and the Disease Management Center teamed up with a biotech group owned or funded by Georgy Savros. This old SOB will burn down the world just so he can control the ashes. He is a former Nazi who has underwritten many expeditions to find forbidden things. It appears that they created some nasty hybrids and at least one huge abomination." Lim puts up some pics of destroyed villages mangled bodies, explaining that China is in a state of panic over these dragon sightings. Rumours are that one has even spotted flying over remote areas. Well, Akimi has an idea. "Oh, Mr. Drake, can we get a custom dragon paint job put on this drone, ASAP?" I suppose so," said Drake. "Why?" "Diversion and terror," she responded. And Drake smiles and says, "Let's do it." And Drake continues. Several hours ago, Eric was sent an encoded message with coordinates to a rally point. He and Abashai have taken turns carrying a severely wounded team member. We know that 2 team members are already dead. When you arrive at the rally point, Lieutenant Moon and Sergeant Park will carry Private Soon out on a stretcher and get him into the nearby river with the help of some operatives. By now, they are all but out of ammo, and the ultrasound weapon battery must be spent. They have had to conceal during the day due to the Chicom troops and aerial searches, and were pursued on their second night by the Chimeras. Once you rendezvous, you must double time back to the cavern to eliminate the threat and get an exact GPS fix on the cave entrance, so these specially designed cruise missiles can seal off this cave forever. Now, Eric's encoded message said that they encountered some freakish 7 or 8 feet tall lizards with long spiked tails that run well on all fours, but are clumsy on 2 legs. Use this to your advantage. They instinctively rear up to hiss and growl just before pouncing on you, displaying their soft underbelly. Or when they do, rip them from stem to stern. Part 5. Death is the easy part. Let's get straight into that. It was 2100 hours as the C-17 prepped for the team's Haho jump from 36,000 feet. Equipment, check. Comms, check. Oxygen, on. The buzzer sounds and the red light starts flashing. Hawk turns to look at Akimi as tears run down her face. He smiles, gives her a thumbs up, and steps off into the darkness. About an hour later, comms crackles with, "Broadsword, dagger, actual. Secure LZ." And Broadsword responds, "Roger, Dagon has ISR." In just over 2 hours they reached the rally point and discovered that Private Soon has died from his injuries. Lieutenant Moon introduces himself and says, 3 of our comrades are now dead, and we will do the difficult part and live on for them by completing the mission. Eric welcomes Tank and Alex and embraces Hawk. "What can we expect?" said Harry. "Well, they look like a cross between a reptilian humanoid and a Nile crocodile. They run about on all fours but can rear up on hind legs, using their tails to strike at you." And Tim responds, "Boys, let's go kill us some lizard gators." As they reached the tunnel entrance, more human remains lay strewn about. It was men, women, and children bearing the same wounds and missing the same organs. Tank and Alex turned their heads away, and Harry responded with, "Gentlemen, if the purpose of life is finding purpose, we sure found one fucked up purpose." And Tim said, "I don't think Delta training ever prepared us for this." And Eric responded, "If perspective is the path to wisdom, we are all about to either become very wise or very frightened." The Hawk took one side of the tunnel, followed by Lieutenant Moon and Alex. Tim took the other side, followed by Tank and Sergeant Park. Eric and Abashai took point and walked the center. The dog's teeth do little to harm the armored hide. But with first contact, I trust Abashai to demonstrate to Thor and Cujo the weaknesses of the short wings at the root. They can tear at them, causing them great pain. At that instant, Abashai and other dogs alerted. 2 of these creatures raced down the sides of the tunnel, jumping towards Eric. He shouted, "Hold your fire!" and wielded his Oooraaah katana, cleaving one while Abashi pounced on the other's back, tearing at its stubby wings. Thor and Cujo joined suit, rolling it over and disemboweling it. These are the outer sentries, positioned just as they were before we made first contact. As they penetrated further into the tunnel, they were suddenly hit with the hissing and wing flapping Eric had warned them about. "These creatures seem to be of a hive mentality," and directed by some higher intelligence, said Alex. No doubt whatever it is lies at the end of this tunnel, said Tank. It doesn't make him any less dangerous, those big gaping mouths full of teeth, said Eric. At that instant, a deafening chorus of hissing and wings flapping began resonating throughout the tunnel, followed by a thunderous rumble, and Eric shouted, "Ready yourselves!" The dogs bristled, and the team readied their weapons, taking firing positions. At that instant, a wave of dark grey figures appeared galloping towards them on the floor, walls, and ceilings of the tunnel. They opened fire and deployed the ultrasonic weapons on more of these creatures than anyone ever cared to count. The flashbangs blinded a few in the front, long enough for some kill shots, but the following waves kept coming. Part 6. The Only Way Out. While on the C-17, a mission assistant said, "Mr. Drake, Joint Chiefs and the Director on Satlink." "Why, put him on a monitor," snapped Drake. And General Billings said, "Drake, what the hell have you stirred up? North Korea just started opening their missile silos. We're about to go into a DEFCON 1. We just scrambled 4 squadrons of F-22s and every B-2 bomber in the region. Delta QRF Hammer and SEAL Rapid Response Team Neptune are being spun up. South Korea and Japan are now on a war footing. There are enough damn troops on a DMZ for them to kill each other in a fucking rock fight." And Akemi spoke up. "General, please, just give us a chance. We need 2 hours. Will you please stand down to condition yellow?" And the general scowled and responded, "A chance to do what?" "Oh, I can't tell you exactly what, sir, but our team has just penetrated their objective. We need 2 hours, and we believe we can resolve this without any further conflict." "And who is we?" said the general. Akemi turned and allowed him to see Tammy and Ling Song. He shook his head and said, "You have 2 hours from right now, or until that goddamn lunatic in Pyongyang starts launching missiles." And Akemi promptly responded with, "Thank you, sir." "Okay, Tammy, time to pull Dragon off Overwatch and go to work." And Tammy began flying that drone down rivers, through valleys, over villages and small towns. Between the scary custom dragon paint job from the Warthog guys and the speaker playing roaring/hissing sounds, the Chinese countryside was convinced they were being attacked by multiple dragons. The drone began pointing a red laser beam and then firing phosphorus rounds into the trees behind ridges, where it gave the impression that a real fire-breathing dragon was on the attack. It looked as if the Dagon drone was scaring the shit out of the Chinese civilians and the military. Multiple reports of troop retreats came in, and even a remote listening facility was abandoning their posts. Akemi and Lin began sending false reports all throughout China, all the way to the countryside near Beijing. And Akemi and Lin Song were able to hack military command nets and decipher some code. During all of this confusion, they were able to get close enough to use the drone antenna to send a stand-down command to the Chinese military. The gals cheered and high-fived each other as the Chickums pulled military assets back. Then, Akemi discovered that there was a hardwired communication system with a satellite link built into the cave system. And she said, "Ray, I have a way to contact the team." Part 7. No sacrifice, no heroes. Tim fired his street sweeper until he was overrun. The creature pounced on top of him, attempted to bite down on his face. Tank rushed like a linebacker, knocking it off of him, and immediately put 2 rounds from his Desert Eagle 50 into its skull. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Well, other than feeling like the Almighty just yanked the magic horseshoe out of my ass, I feel just fine. Oh damn, we gotta get you a tryout for the Houston Texans." Sergeant Park emptied mag after mag until he began firing his .45. A lizard knocked him down, but Cujo bit into its wing roots long enough for Park to change mags and put a bullet into his throat. The armor-piercing phosphorus rounds were doing their jobs. The incendiary rounds from the street sweepers were causing the lizards to go up in flames. The dogs were conducting gorilla-like hit-and-run attacks to confuse the lizards, but they still kept coming. And Harry shouts, "Gonna set off the claymores! Fall back and take cover!" The heat and the smell of the sulfur, it was overwhelming as dozens of lizards burned until they lay dead or scurried about engulfed in flames. They shrieked in agony until the team felt their eardrums would rupture. The few who were able to escape scampered back down the tunnel. On the other side, Hawk had emptied both his street sweeper and his Soakum, where he was now fighting with his 45 in one hand and the sword in the other. Lieutenant Moon had emptied both his rifle and pistol and was now backed into a corner by two lizards, when Alex took two large strides and beheaded both creatures. Harry looked around to see if everybody was okay and said to Eric, "What the hell is this with the Chinese and their fascination for dragons?" And Eric responded, "Well, it's not just China that is filled with dragon lore. Even Alexander the Great had a connection to a serpent. His mother, Olympias, was a princess renowned for being a snake handler. Legend says she became pregnant by Zeus when he took the form of a snake." And Harry shook his head and said, "I had to ask." He then said, "Gentlemen, shall we push on and discover what lies at the end of this tunnel?" And Eric proclaimed, "Sun Tzu once said, when you confront an army, leave an outlet free. Do not press a desperate foe too hard. Thusly, it appears they will lead us to their king." And Hawk responded, "He also said that chaos brings opportunity. I'm a little concerned about what this opportunity is going to look like." And nonetheless, the team cautiously pushed on until their ears began ringing with strange thoughts and images in their heads. "Breathe and clear your minds," Hawk shouted. "Something or somebody is trying to get inside of our heads." And then a loud whooshing sound approached, and they saw the Alpha hovering with the remainder of the lizards in a skirmish line out front. He was a giant creature, standing over 12 feet tall, and with a long spiked tail and wings that would allow it to fly for some distance. One sweep of that tail would be deadly. If the force didn't kill you, the spikes would. And although he didn't breathe fire, when he roared, his breath had a purple/green tint to it that was toxic if you inhaled it. It had the same scales on its back as a Nile crocodile, but larger. But this Alpha could mind speak, and he also verbally spoke as he hissed. He cursed them and announced,
"I am Long Shen, and you are cockroaches and worms."
Part 8. Quench the fire. Quench the spirit. Let's get straight into that. Harry screamed, "Open fire!" as the remainder of the smaller creatures rushed them, but they concentrated their fire on the dragon hurting it. But their ordnance wasn't nearly as effective as it was on the smaller lizards. It roared and swung its spiked tail, striking Moon and sending him about 15 feet through the air, crashing into the cavern wall. Luckily, the tail hit his vest, but he was severely injured and spitting out blood. His helmet was crushed and blood running down one side of his face. Tank managed to get inside of the arc of the tail to attack, but it struck him in the chest as he defended, with his arm knocking him flat. Thor jumped onto its back, going for the wings, but this reptile slung him off with great force, and before he could stomp one of his feet onto Tank, Alex and Cujo attacked from behind, and with Alex running his sword into its back all the way to the hilt. It roared in agony and instantly flexed its body, ejecting Alex and his sword about 10 feet through the air. The team was hurting it bad, but it had regenerative properties that caused its wounds to heal and its spikes and horns to grow back within minutes. Eric gave the command to deploy the ultrasonic weapons at full power, and Hawk shouted, "Fall back!" Amazingly, the dozen or so remaining smaller lizards didn't pursue and formed a protective wall between the team and the Alpha. Hawk's cell began ringing, and to his surprise, it was Akemi, accessing a Wi-Fi net built into the tunnels. "Baby, we're getting our asses kicked and kind of busy falling back right now." "I know, Harry. I was able to tap into some footage from the hidden cameras in the caves. Listen, to destroy the dragon, you must destroy its fire bladder. That's the answer. It's his essence, or spirit. If you destroy it, you kill the monster. You must use the incendiaries to melt down one of the blue swords and throw the molten steel down its throat. Get one of those large ceramic urns lying around and line it with some crystal fragments from the cave wall." "Okay, baby, we're on it. Gotta go." Harry immediately rallied the team to share what he had learned. "I will do it, announced Lieutenant Moon. "I will do it. That will allow the rest of you to deal with the other lizards." And Sergeant Park responded, "Sir, that is suicide." And he responded, "No, it's vengeance." Tank and Alex volunteered to flank the dragon with ultrasound weapons, while Park would run interference for Moon to shove the hot steel down its throat. That would leave the rest of the team to fight the smaller reptiles. And Tim said, "Boys, it's time we got comfortable with being uncomfortable if we're going to make it out of here alive." And Harry responded, "Now who's getting philosophical?" Part 9. A Warrior and a Dragon. Eric began to prepare an urn and melt down his sword, and asked Harry and Tim to please give him their katanas. "While you two fire your ordnance, I will use your swords for the Senpu or whirlwind to wade through the lizards." The Sergeant Park tells Lieutenant Moon that he will cover for him while he assaults the dragon. And Moon tells Park, "I leave my team here. If I cannot lead them back, it's up to you to live and tell the story of Ghost 10. That is an order. I alone will avenge our brothers and throw the hot steel down that dragon's throat. Tank and Alex can distract it while I get close enough." And Eric proclaimed, "Surely if Heracles could strangle his first serpent as a baby in his cradle, we can kill this one." And they start breaking some small crystals off the cave walls and putting them into an urn. Tim drops an incendiary into the urn, and Eric puts the tip of his Ayorio katana into the pot and shakes his head as it begins to melt. "Farewell, old friend. You have served me well." Lieutenant Moon's head is now bandaged, and he has received an injection of morphine. Harry extends his hand and says, "Lieutenant, it's been an honor." And Moon bowed and took the urn. Harry orders the team to form a wedge with Moon behind, holding an urn, and Eric out front with both swords held high. "Say when, Eric," said Hawk. And Eric announced, "Just as St. George slew the dragon, so shall we. Charge!" Eric launched himself towards the center of the group while the team fired their ordnance in both flanks. Tank and Alex fired their Barrett 50s into the crowd, dropping the reptiles left and right. Harry and Tim fired their street sweepers towards the dragon as it amazingly cursed at them in both English and Korean, calling them filthy dung. Eric spun like a true whirlwind, ducking and swerving, while severing arms, legs, and even heads as the lizard bit and slashed at him. Hawk and Tim landed several rounds on the dragon as he flapped his wings and flew side to side, roaring and hissing his foul breath at them. Sergeant Park was now trotting in front of Lieutenant Moon and firing his last mag as they advanced towards the dragon. And Harry shouted, "The wings! Light up his wings!" as he and Tim got close enough to score a hit on each wing, causing them to erupt in flames. The dragon fell with a loud thud that shook the cavern, causing rocks to fall, and Tank and Alex were now hacking away at the dragon's flanks as Park and Moon drew closer. The monster roared, spewing its hot breath and knocking Park to the ground. But this was Moon's chance, as he lowered his head and pushed forward within a few feet of the gaping jaws, throwing the urn right down the vile creature's throat. The dragon threw back its head in the air, and with an unearthly screech that shook the ground, throwing the team down as large rocks were dislodged from the ceiling of the cavern. A purple and green ball of gas was expelled from its mouth as its abdomen swelled to twice its size, causing an explosion, following by an implosion as guts and entrails erupted from the dragon. It went limp and slowly toppled to one side, falling to the ground with a thud that shook the ground. Lieutenant Moon was propelled several feet through the air, landing in a lifeless crumple. The few remaining lizards twisted and flopped as they fell to the cavern floor. And Eric, Tank, and Alex scrambled to their feet and ended the remaining lizards as their dogs locked onto the creatures with them. Hawk and Tim staggered to their feet to check on Sergeant Park and Lieutenant Moon. Moon was dead, and Park was suffering for what looked like acid burns to the side of his face. The dragon and the remaining lizards were dead. But this was no time for a celebration. Part 10. Evil has a face. Let's get straight into that. As the smoke cleared, a large security monitor recessed into the cave wall came on. It was Serpent clapping his hands and saying, "Bravo! Well done." And Tim said, "Damn you evil son of a bitch, ain't you ever gonna die?" "On the contrary, I plan to live on with the help of my research," said Serpent. "And I could use some men like you in my employ." "No thanks," said Harry. "They call that sleeping with the enemy." And Serpent responded, "Have you ever heard of the term, the enemy of my enemy?" And Eric responded, "History is replete with the Arabs, the Mongols, and the communists proving a demise for the lesser of the two allies post-conflict." And Serpent mused, "So says the super soldier whose veins pulse with ancient wonder." "Well, at least this wonder has a conscience," and Serpent responded. "Machiavelli cynically said that friends are people you can control and who depend on you. But reality is that our political friends are the ones who control the masses and make them feel good about it. For these people, a conscience is a waste of energy." And Hawk said, "Upon that, we can agree. Problem is, you are drunk on the illusion of power and self-importance." Then Harry's cell rings with a call from Akimi, saying, "The Chinese military are moving on that SOB's lab to destroy it as we speak. And Harry, you all have to leave now. Thunder and lightning are inbound." And Drake tells Lin Song to get a fix on Serpent's signal. Lin informs him that it's bouncing off too many servers. And Serpent says, "My dear Colonel, no one is more enslaved than he who falsely thinks he is free." And Harry responded, "George Washington said that he would rather die on his feet than live on his knees. You can expect no less from us." Then said Serpent, "Ah, yes, the beloved Washington. But in my case, it's safer to be feared than loved." Or so said Machiavelli. And Eric responds, "In a little while, you will have forgotten everything. And in a little while, everything will have forgotten you." So said Marcus Aurelius. And Hawk shouts, "Move, team, move!" The team double-timed out of the cave with tank carrying Lieutenant Moon. They sprinted down the mountainside, and as they got about 300 meters from the cave entrance, they observed the first cruise missile fly overhead, followed by the earth-shattering thoom that knocks them off balance as they rolled downhill. They got up and continued their all-out sprint as another missile passed overhead, followed by an intense heat and blinding light as they dove behind some large rocks for cover. Just as described, the entire mountaintop began collapsing. Harry's cell rang with the news that 4 raiders with the Delta QRF had penetrated Chinese airspace to pick them up at the rally point. The drone was still jamming, but they only had a little time left. They picked up the bodies of Sun, Huang, and Yun, and then raced to board the raiders. Part 11. Endings and Beginnings. Let's get straight into that. As the choppers landed at Camp Eagle, the team emerged with their honored dead wrapped in both South Korean and US flags. Both US and SK troops stood at attention and saluted as flags were lowered to half-staff and taps solemnly rang out from a lone bugler. South Korean and US troops saluted to honor Ghost Team 1-0. The mood was silent and surreal as Sergeant Park limped with his face bandaged in front of the gunnies carrying his brothers. Raymond Drake called for a debriefing inside the C-17 command center. Akimi threw herself at Harry, as did Lin Song at Tim. And then came Tammy running to Eric as he scooped her off the ground and held her close with her feet dangling. A large monitor was turned on displaying Chuck, Jamal, and the team at JTC HQ in Fort Campbell. Ray announces, "Ladies and gentlemen, this was my last mission." And Drake teared up. "Tim Ross will be assuming command, and I am retiring to open a facility in Montana for disadvantaged kids. It will be called Camp LeBlanc, and we will teach the lost art of outdoorsmanship. The door will always be open to each and every one of you. And who knows, the next great cryptid hunter may emerge from there. I have known no greater privilege of honor than having served with you." And people were embracing each other as tears flowed. And Harry announced, "You know, it's getting near the end of the line for me too. I've always felt sure that when I attacked those in front of me, it was because I was defending those behind me. Those lines had become blurred." And Eric responds, "And people say I am the philosophical one." And Tim proclaimed, "All that time around them Japanese sagas done made him go all Plato on us." Eric responded, "Three things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth," said Buddha. "But I say a fourth, the wit of a Texan." And then he smiled. Tim then told Harry that he wanted he and Chuck to train an entire JTC platoon, and with 4 5-man teams and the remainder as our in-house QRF. As we bring on more alphas, teams will be ready to integrate. Hawk nodded and embraced Tim. By the way, Hawk said, "We didn't have the chance to get acquainted with Tank and Alex. I know you guys have high IQs and are usually attracted to the study of some cerebral subject." And Alex responded, "Yes, my passion is the study of psychology and the human mind." And Tank proclaimed, "Actually, I'm a sports lover." "I knew it," said Tim. "I knew it. Football, right?" And Tank responded, "Well, since watching my first croquet game, I have been fascinated and captivated with the knowledge required to appreciate the topography and the skill to master the biomechanics of this game." Well, the look on Tim's face, it was priceless. Epilogue. In appreciation to Sir Luke the Dragon Slayer and the fearful Forest Round Table. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Certainly another one. Wow. Chest pounding, heart racing as ever. And from the incredible mind of our good friend, Rico. And that brings us to the end of our first batch of Rico stories. And I'm sure you guys hope as much as I that it does continue to write more and hopefully pursue this into a publishing career. As ever, Rico, a huge thank you for your patience, your dedication and input on this channel, helping breathe life into the channel with the likes of Michael, Ed, and Mr. Savage. As ever, I hope you enjoyed my rendition and eagerly await any new work in the future. Well, guys and girls, as ever, you know the drill. Please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. Well, it really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. If you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things like myself, then please do get in touch with me at the contact email, which is as on screen. contactthedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. Bit of a bumpy start to this month, guys, as I'm sure you can all appreciate, but doing my best to get back into gear and start knocking things out. As ever, I hope you're all well and happy, family and friends alike. You're trying to keep fit and focused. But above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.